The challenge to bring into harmony things which are divergent or opposed or in conflict is a constant one faced by all people all the time for matters large and small. It's an incessant part of being human and alive, is this particular labor. And so um, I don't know if a lot of recommended paths for accomplishing this have been put forward. I do know that I hear a lot lately of techniques for listening more or these uh, more empathy or greater listening and things. But the exact means by which things deeply divided can move into harmony are is an important part of finding a way to live peacefully in my own life. I was reading something this morning that was examining the challenge of North and South Korea, which is one of the hardest and most intense borders on Earth. It's on the brink of war constantly. There's a one of the parties is deeply invested in the development of nuclear weapons and nuclear testing. There's a great deal of division there. So if we think about our own life, there must be some people or some things that similarly are at odds with us, maybe not with that degree of conflict or intensity, but something we would like to see reconciled or harmonized in some way. So I was reading this morning of a very interesting proposition on how the Koreas could be harmonized, and then I thought this should be probably universally applicable. Um, the sentences read, at the moment, North and South are going in different directions. One is trying to go south, the other is trying to go north, and they are on two divergent paths. Their purposes are at odds with each other. If both sides insist on their own position, it is certain that the situation will again result in breakdown. The question is what is to be done about this? There must be a South Korean person who loves North Korea with a greater love than any South Korean person has for his own country. Also, there must be a North Korean person who loves South Korea with a greater love than any North Korean has for his or her own country. There is no option or solution other than this. This struck me as profound and fascinating on all kinds of fronts, just the mere introduction of a sort of geographical or geometrical element to any sort of conflict in which it's inevitable that two people facing each other with conflictual purposes or seeking to dominate the other into a unity that suits my preference is um, is directional. We're traveling in opposite directions. Even that should be reconciled is a fascinating beginning point of thought on bringing things into harmonious relation. Uh, Ideally, one would be with my partners. I imagine myself, I have the geographical imagination of traveling, facing the same direction and moving in the same direction, not opposites. And then the other element, of course, is fairly obvious, is that that elements of the opposite side have a more profound love for the other side than I have for my own. So, say if I pick a way or a purpose or an insistence on a particular thing that I have a great passion and love for, then my task is to find in what would be an enemy or an opposite a way to love that community or that individual or that thing with a love that transcends any love that anyone from my, call it, side has for my side. It's a it's sort of piercing or penetrating the barriers of insistence on a particular way or a particular way mostly of doing things or a way of being, and that if I or anyone comes to hold a greater love, that means a greater care for the welfare and benefit and benefit of life, coming to the opposite one than my own, and vice versa, therein lies the beginning of a genuine movement and energy towards the harmonization of any two elements in conflict. All right, that's for today. Thanks for listening.
I think it's natural for all of us to kind of take an inventory of value, because basically in life we're going to be seeking one thing or another, seeking time to rest, or seeking great restaurants or food, or seeking to be entertained, or seeking to have meaningful relationships, and so on and so forth. So basically, no one lives their life without some desires or some pursuits, and those things which we value or pursue, or those things which we desire or pursue, I should say, could be categorized as things we value. Um, One can also get quite deep into an examination of very core values. For me, one is liberty, to be unencumbered, unconstrained, not not tied down or obligated other than where I choose to be. But whatever it is that we seek, it's essentially we are. These are things we value. So I came across something this morning, um, from a little passage on our desire to live in harmony. That's another condition where that uh, for the creation of freedom. When you're living in harmony, nothing's against you. You're in sync with the other, and you're quite free under conditions of harmony. So this is something that I myself pursue, and so these few words on the pursuit of harmony caught my interest. It says, "What is the common denominator among those who say, 'I want to live in harmony with others'? It is not power. Power cannot transcend history. Power is limited to a specific period in time. The same is true with knowledge. The world of knowledge has an innate tendency to develop. Does knowledge give us the heart to say, 'I want to live with this particular piece of knowledge forever'? Clearly, we cannot keep either wealth, knowledge, or even power with us forever." So it was a fascinating sentence for me to come across, because um, it introduced to me the very simple kind of equation that time, or persistence or endurance is um, a measure, or a gauge against which you can measure what you value. So people naturally seek power, knowledge, and money. And I believe they seek them because they believe that these things are what give one an advantage over others, superiority, greater power, greater freedom. That if I have more money, I can do what I want. If I have more knowledge, I'm not constrained by the narrow views of others. I can gain a position of ascendancy and thereby be free to pursue my own desires better than others. But the interesting thing about this passage I just read is that uh, the speaker introduces time as a gauge by which you assess the value of these things. So power, the passage read, "Power cannot transcend history." It is such a fascinating thing to be introduced. The moment you die, your power dies with you. There may be institutions you leave behind that carry that power, but uh, so far as your particular advantage from having that power, especially if you've attained it in ways that are that are challenging to your moral quality as a human being, or if you've been hurtful in the pursuit of power, it does you no good. It's limited to the time in which it's exercised, and it comes and goes. Same with knowledge. Very interestingly, it says, "Who wants to?" Everyone knows that knowledge develops, it changes. What feels right or seems right, new circumstances, new evidence, new realities, new uh, related information changes the quality of that knowledge. So the mere pursuit of knowledge is not a secure manner in which to attain one's status as superior and free. And finally, money. Money is, although most highly pursued, is in a way the lowest of these things. That's why wealthy people seek power eventually. All these billionaires running for president and stuff like that, because everyone knows money comes and goes. It's the impact of time or temporal measure against money is very clear to most people, but not with knowledge. It's not that clear, and with power, it's not that clear. And so people seek these three things when it's been clearly introduced in what I just read, that that time as a measure of these things lacks any kind of enduring guarantee of their value. Whereas if you take the quality of that good that you do, the sacrifice of yourself, the pursuit of harmony in the service of others, or in seeking the welfare of others, that clearly has no temporal termination of the value of that particular way of seeking your the harmonization of yourself with those of others. You're seeking their welfare, you're serving, you're sacrificing yourself. In fact, the simple description is simply to love something. And love is eternal. Love never stops gaining its fruits. And so the simple thought I wanted to offer with this particular set of thoughts or words here is the very fascinating thing I discovered by reading a sentence in which the writer introduces time as to assess or measure or gauge the value of those things most commonly sought. Thanks a lot for listening.